So the culture war rages on. Here we have a story in Yahoo News. Georgia school board fires teacher for reading a book to students about gender identity. All right, let me give you the specifics of it and we'll break it down. A Georgia school board voted along party lines Thursday to fire a teacher after officials said she improperly read a book on gender fluidity to her 5th grade class. The Cobb County School Board in suburban Atlanta voted 4-3 to fire Katie Rinderly, overriding the recommendation of a panel of 3 retired educators. The panel found after a 2-day hearing that Rinderly had violated district policies, but said she should not be fired. She had been a teacher for 10 years when she got into trouble in March for reading the picture book, My Shadow is Purple, by Scott Stewart at Due West Elementary School, after which some parents complained. The case has drawn wide attention as a result of what public school teachers can teach in class, how much a school system can control teachers, and whether parents can veto instruction they dislike. It comes amid a nationwide conservative backlash to books and teaching about LGBTQ plus subjects in school. Rinderly declined to comment after the vote, but released a statement through the Southern Poverty Law Center, which helped represent her. The district is sending a harmful message that not all students are worthy of affirmation in being their unapologetic and authentic selves, Rinderly said in the statement. This decision, based on intentionally vague policies, will result in more teachers self-censoring in fear of not knowing where the invisible line will be drawn. The board's 4 Republicans voted to fire Rinderly, while 3 Democrats voted against firing her after unsuccessfully seeking to delay the vote. Superintendent Chris Ragsdale, who is backed by the Republican majority, had originally recommended Rinderly be fired. Quote, "The district is pleased that this difficult issue has concluded. We are very serious about keeping our classrooms focused on teaching, learning, and opportunities for success for students. The board's decision is reflective of that mission," the Cobb County District said in a press release. Her lawyer, Craig Goodmark, told reporters after the meeting in Marietta that the vote was an act that only can be construed as politics over policy, reiterating that the board policy prohibiting teaching on controversial issues was so vague that Rinderly couldn't know what was allowed or not. The hearing tribunal seemed to agree with that point, refusing to agree with the statement that Rinderly knowingly and intentionally violated district policies. Quote, "It's impossible for a teacher to know what's in the minds of parents when she starts her lesson," Goodmark said. "For parents to be able, with a political agenda, to come in from outside the classroom and have a teacher fired is completely unfair. It's not right. It's terrible for Georgia's education system." Rinderly could appeal her firing to the State Board of Education and ultimately into court. Goodmark said Rinderly was considering her options. Although she was fired effective immediately, she's still licensed and could teach elsewhere. She will be a teacher again, Goodmark said. Cobb County adopted a rule barring teaching on controversial issues in 2022 after Georgia lawmakers earlier that year enacted laws barring teachings of divisive concepts and creating a Parents' Bill of Rights. The Divisive Concepts Law, although it addresses teaching on race, bars teachers from espousing personal political beliefs. The Bill of Rights guarantees that parents have the right to direct the upbringing and the moral or religious training of his or her minor child. We should probably come back to this paragraph here. Rinderly is believed to be the first public school teacher in Georgia to be fired because of the laws. None of the board members discussed the decision, but school district lawyer Sherry Colves said at the hearing that discussing gender identity and gender fluidity was inappropriate. The Cobb County School District is very serious about the classroom being a neutral place for students to learn, Colves said at the hearing. One-sided instruction on political, religious, or social beliefs does not belong in our classrooms. That last part is kind of ironic because I think that a lot of these people do want one-sided instruction on political, religious, and social beliefs. I think they want a down-the-line conservative view taught on all of those things. Okay, so let's dive into this here. From the perspective of the conservative parents who wanted this person fired and the conservative officials in the district who wanted this person fired, they would make the argument, yeah, what you're doing is you're indoctrinating kids, you're propagandizing kids into potentially being gay, or in this case, I would think they would argue trans. It's basically a book about acceptance of yourself, your authentic self for who you really are. And of course, one of the interpretations people would take away from that is, hey, if you feel like you're the opposite sex or feel like you're the opposite gender, it's okay. It's not a problem. You can be who you are. The book is My Shadow is Purple, and the teacher worked there for 10 years, and they say the book is on gender fluidity. So then the question becomes, hey, is it okay to teach that a concept such as gender fluidity exists to a 5th grade class? My perspective on it is Yes. I don't think that they're actively trying to make kids gender fluid in the same way that in the 1980s, even though there was a panic around this, nobody was trying to make the kids gay by acknowledging that gay people exist, right? In the 80s or 90s. It's just like, it's okay if you're this. Self-acceptance is important. In this instance, same thing. It's okay if you're this. Self-acceptance is important. And I think that that's the big disconnect, is the conservatives would argue you're trying to make the kids gay, or you're trying to make the kids trans, and you're forcing this lifestyle on them, when the argument from the teacher is, we're just acknowledging that this is a concept that exists in the world, and we want people to know that this concept exists in the world. To hide these concepts from kids and pretend like they don't exist, I think that's the propagandizing, and I think that's the indoctrination. So another thing that's indoctrination here, look, let's read this part again. Cobb County adopted a rule barring teaching on controversial issues in 2022. See, that's astonishing to me. Controversial issues, you should never avoid touching controversial issues in a school. Like, what are you only supposed to teach? What, the sky is blue, water is wet, grass is green, obey mommy and daddy. These people probably also want to teach, like, Jesus is God, or what, like, what does that mean? Yes, everything is controversial, right? If you teach American history, the good, the bad, and everything in between, it's gonna be controversial. You might have some people on the left take issues with bringing up and highlighting the really positive things in U.S. history, and you'll have issues with people on the right who will get really mad at bringing up negative things in U.S. history. Like, everything is political, everything is controversial. You still have to try to find a way to teach history as objectively and fairly as possible, and touch on all these different concepts as objectively and fairly as possible. And so when they say we don't want to teach controversial issues, that is effectively a way to silence teachers. It's effectively a way to say, don't bring any liberal ideas in the classroom because this area is very conservative, and you have some officials who are very conservative, and you have the parents who are, don't teach my kid anything, that I wouldn't want them taught. And it's like, we can't craft a curriculum that every single parent is going to agree with. It's not possible to do that. So they say, after Georgia lawmakers earlier that year enacted laws barring the teaching of divisive concepts and creating a Parents' Bill of Rights, the Divisive Concepts Law, although it addresses teaching on race, bars teachers from espousing personal political beliefs. So in other words, keep your own personal politics out of this as much as possible. Teaching that it's okay to be gay or it's okay to be trans, that is political, but it's also, I think, the correct message. It is okay to be gay. It is okay to be trans. If they're actively trying to make kids trans, that's a different thing, but I don't think they're doing that. I think that's honestly made up from the right. I think it's this mania, this hysteria, this like, they're trying to trans your kids. It seems laughable, honestly. There was a great quote, and I think it was a Washington Post article where some woman was like, some teacher was like, I barely have time to teach your kids math. You think I'm teaching them to be trans? Like, what's wrong with you? The Bill of Rights guarantees that parents have the right to direct the upbringing and the moral or religious training of his or her minor child. But like, okay, you can teach them your own religion in your own personal time, right? Or you can send them to religious training. But in the school, there isn't religious training. Nor should there be. You could talk about religion, but you can't teach this is the correct religion or what have you. Here's the thing, man. Let's just call it what it is. The conservatives in these districts, they want to teach American exceptionalism. They want to teach Christianity. They want to teach traditional lifestyles. One man, one woman, white picket fence, a dog and 2 kids or whatever, 3 kids. Like, this is what they want. And if the school district colors outside the lines at all, even to teach like basic acceptance, they view that as an imposition. They view that as propagandizing. And that I just don't agree with that at all. I think if there's any place for these concepts where you touch on all these concepts, it is the classroom. It is the classroom. If they were trying to teach kids that Christianity is correct or that you should all be trans, if there's obvious lines that are crossed, I would object to it. I don't think this woman crossed that line. Not even close. And but the reason why I wanted to talk about this story is because I know there's actually going to be a lot of conservatives who think like, no, I think they got it right. I think they should have fired her. And it's like, okay, well then don't pretend like you're in favor of the free exchange of ideas and open discussion and you tolerate disagreement. And because, I get it that with little kids it's a little different, but there's nothing I find objectionable in the message that you should be true to your authentic self and it's okay to be who you are. There's nothing about that I find objectionable. But, you know, in the context of gay or trans stuff, a lot of these people lose their minds and they think you're trying to trans my kid. And so I want to stop you. And this poor woman got fired. She was a teacher for 10 years, man. Was this malicious? No. And now the other thing that happens is it's a chilling effect. So none of these kids, this is 5th grade, like I said, but you bet your ass, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, they're going to be not going to touch any of these issues with a 10-foot pole. And is that what you want? You want kids who are in 7th grade, 8th grade, whatever it is, and they don't know the first thing about homosexuality or that gender dysphoria exists or that all these concepts that might be quote-unquote controversial exist in our thing. You actively want to keep the kids dumber in that scenario, if that's your take. So this is just a clash of different cultures and civilizations here in terms of the left-wing view of it and the right-wing view of it. And suffice to say, I think the right, it has far overreached. And it's a sad state of affairs, man. It's a sad state of affairs. And you could add this to the list of we've had the conversation about the PEN America reports and all the book bannings in all the conservative states. They're banning it in the school library. They're banning it in the school classroom. In Florida, they covered up some of the in-classroom libraries because each book would need to be vetted and approved by the state. I mean, this stuff is getting out of hand. And if you think, oh, all these books that are being banned are just, you know, explicit pornographic stuff, that is definitely not true. We went through the report in a tremendous amount of detail, and it's some, honestly, small percentage that falls into that category. And then that opens a bigger conversation about, well, what is sex ed and how do you teach it and what would be acceptable on that front. But a lot of this stuff, like Mouse was banned. Mouse. It's like a book on the Holocaust. There was a book that was banned about some female black basketball player. That was banned. General things touching on race or gender or Holocaust stuff or even a lot of like mild violence stuff was banned. I mean, it's getting absurd. You want to put all the kids in a padded room and I like, what do you want? What do you want? You want to hide them from the real world? I don't understand. It's incredibly goofy, and I massively disagree with it, and the culture war is still raging. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.